Old West 1820. A noble widow owes a debt, but she didn't expect a giant lumberjack at her door. If you're enjoying these Old West tales that warm the heart and stir the soul, please hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support means the world to me, and I love hearing which moments touched you most. Now, settle in for a story of courage, unexpected love, and the harsh beauty of the frontier. Ma'am, her elderly servant, Moses, peered through the study door. You all right? Elizabeth forced her spine straight, a habit from her Virginia upbringing. Quite well, Moses. Please prepare the carriage. I must visit the bank. But the bank held more bad news. Charles had mortgaged everything, the house, the lands, even her mother's jewelry. The account held barely $200. I'm sorry, Mrs. Whitmore, the banker said, not meeting her eyes. Your husband was enthusiastic about his investments. Elizabeth left with her chin high, though inside she crumbled. At 32, she'd buried a husband who'd left her nothing but debt and shame. No children to comfort her. No family left. Back east, the war had taken them all. That night, she sat by the dying fire, studying the contract. Josiah McKenna. The name meant nothing to her. Charles had never mentioned him. The address was deep in the Missouri timberlands. 2 days' ride west. She had two choices: flee like a thief or face his creditor and negotiate. Elizabeth Whitmore had never run from anything. She penned a letter with steady hands. Mr. McKenna, I shall arrive Tuesday next to discuss my late husband's obligation. E. Whitmore. Moses tried to dissuade her. That's rough country, ma'am. No place for a lady alone. Then I shall have to be more than a lady, Elizabeth replied, packing her father's old navy coat. Tuesday dawned cold and gray. Elizabeth, dressed in her plainest riding habit, black wool, that had seen better days. She'd sold her good horses. Only the aged mare remained. But Buttercup was steady, and that mattered more than speed. The first day's ride took her through familiar bluegrass country. She stayed at a respectable inn, ignoring the curious stares. A woman traveling alone raised eyebrows, but her bearing discouraged questions. The second day, the land changed. Hills grew steeper, forests denser. The road dwindled to a rutted trek. By afternoon, towering pines blocked the weak sun. The air smelled of resin and damp earth. She almost missed a turnoff. Just a notch in the trees and a wooden sign. McKenna Timber. Her heart hammered as Buttercup picked her way down the narrow trail. Then she heard it, the rhythmic thunk of an axe. Through the trees, she glimpsed movement. Elizabeth straightened her hat, squared her shoulders, and rode into the clearing. Man didn't notice her at first. He swung the axe with mechanical precision, muscles rippling beneath a sweat-stained shirt. He was enormous, well over 6 feet, with shoulders like barn beams. Red brown hair curled at his collar. A beard covered half his face. Mr. McKenna. Her voice came out smaller than intended. He turned, axe still raised. Green eyes widened with surprise. For a heartbeat, they stared at each other. The widow in her proper black, and the giant who looked like he could snap her in half. Then he lowered the axe, and something almost like a smile touched his weathered face. Ma'am, her elderly servant, Moses, peered through the study door. You all right? Elizabeth forced her spine straight, a habit from her Virginia upbringing. Quite well, Moses. Please prepare the carriage. I must visit the bank. But the bank held more bad news. Charles had mortgaged everything, the house, the lands, even her mother's jewelry. The account held barely $200. I'm sorry, Mrs. Whitmore, the banker said, not meeting her eyes. Your husband was enthusiastic about his investments. Elizabeth left with her chin high, though inside she crumbled. At 32, she'd buried a husband who'd left her nothing but debt and shame. No children to comfort her. No family left. Back east, the war had taken them all. That night, she sat by the dying fire, studying the contract. Josiah McKenna. The name meant nothing to her. Charles had never mentioned him. The address was deep in the Missouri timberlands. 2 days' ride west. She had two choices: flee like a thief or face his creditor and negotiate. Elizabeth Whitmore had never run from anything. She penned a letter with steady hands. Mr. McKenna, I shall arrive Tuesday next to discuss my late husband's obligation. E. Whitmore. Moses tried to dissuade her. That's rough country, ma'am. No place for a lady alone. Then I shall have to be more than a lady, Elizabeth replied, packing her father's old navy coat. Tuesday dawned cold and gray. Elizabeth, dressed in her plainest riding habit, black wool, that had seen better days. She'd sold her good horses. Only the aged mare remained. But Buttercup was steady, and that mattered more than speed. The first day's ride took her through familiar bluegrass country. She stayed at a respectable inn, ignoring the curious stares. A woman traveling alone raised eyebrows, but her bearing discouraged questions. The second day, the land changed. Hills grew steeper, forests denser. The road dwindled to a rutted track. By afternoon, towering pines blocked the weak sun. The air smelled of resin and damp earth. She almost missed a turnoff. Just a notch in the trees and a wooden sign. McKenna Timber. Her heart hammered as Buttercup picked her way down the narrow trail. Then she heard it, the rhythmic thunk of an axe. Through the trees, she glimpsed movement. Elizabeth straightened her hat, squared her shoulders, and rode into the clearing. Man didn't notice her at first. He swung the axe with mechanical precision, muscles rippling beneath a sweat-stained shirt. He was enormous, well over 6 feet, with shoulders like barn beams. Red brown hair curled at his collar. A beard covered half his face. Mr. McKenna. Her voice came out smaller than intended. He turned, axe still raised. Green eyes widened with surprise. For a heartbeat, they stared at each other. The widow in her proper black, and the giant who looked like he could snap her in half. Then he lowered the axe, and something almost like a smile touched his weathered face. Josiah McKenna had expected many things when Charles Whitmore's widow wrote, but not this slight woman with steel in her spine. She sat ramrod straight on an old mare, looking like she'd blow away in a strong wind. Yet she'd ridden 2 days alone through dangerous country. Ma'am, he nodded, suddenly aware of his sweaty state. Didn't expect you so soon. I said Tuesday. Her voice held a soft Virginia lilt. I keep my word, Mr. McKenna. He gestured toward the cabin. Come inside. He must be tired. She dismounted gracefully, though he caught her slight wince. Not used to long rides. Then he reached for the mare's reins, and she hesitated before allowing it. The cabin was rough, a clean one large room with a stone fireplace, handmade furniture, bearskin rug. Her gaze swept it all, revealing nothing. Coffee. He busied himself at the stove, needing something to do with his hands. This close, she smelled of lavender and trail dust. Thank you. She perched on a chair edge, removing her gloves finger by finger. Shall we discuss business? Josiah poured 2 cups, his own hands looking massive around the tin mugs. Your husband owed me $8,000. For what, precisely? He studied her face, pale, fine-boned, purple shadows beneath gray eyes. Lumber. He was building something big, he said. Needed the best wood, fastest delivery. Promised double payment if I rushed the order. Her lips tightened. And you believed him. Had no reason not to. His credit was good in St. Louis. Josiah sat across from her, the chair creaking. Delivered 3 months ago. He kept promising payment was coming. It isn't. She met his gaze squarely. Charles left me nothing but debts, Mr. McKenna. The house is mortgaged. The accounts are empty. I can offer you $200 all. I haven't my word that I'll pay the rest when I can. Most men would have raged, threatened. Josiah had seen desperate women before, had watched his own mother beg creditors after his father died. He sipped his coffee, thinking, what happened to the lumber? I don't know. Charles never mentioned any building project. Pain flickered across her features. It seems he kept many secrets. You could have run. Why didn't you? Her chin lifted. I'm not a thief, Mr. McKenna. My family's name meant something once. It still does to me. Strange woman, in his experience. Rich folks' honor extended only as far as their comfort. But she'd come here, alone and vulnerable, to face a debt she hadn't made. Stayed a night, he heard himself say, too late to start back. We'll figure something tomorrow. I couldn't impose, not imposing. Got a lean-to out back I use sometimes. You'll take the cabin. She studied him with those storm-gray eyes, looking for the trap. Maybe. Finally, she nodded. Thank you. He tended her horse while she freshened up. Buttercup was old but well cared for, telling him more about Elizabeth Whitmore than any words. When he returned, she'd made herself useful, fire stoked, beans warming, coffee fresh. Not helpless, she said, catching his surprise. They ate in companionable silence. Outside, wind moaned through pines. The fire crackled. She looked smaller in the flickering light, but no less determined. Tell me about Charles, Josiah said finally. What kind of man was he? She set down her spoon carefully. Charming, handsome, full of grand plans. A bitter smile. I was young and foolish. He seemed so sophisticated compared to the boys I knew. My parents opposed a match, but I thought I knew better. How long were you married? 7 years. No children, a blessing now, I suppose. She gazed into the fire. He was always chasing the next opportunity. Gold mines, railroad stocks, miracle tonics. This lumber must have been another scheme. I'm sorry. The words felt inadequate. She straightened. Your sympathy is kind but unnecessary. I made my choices. Now I must live with them. Thunder rumbled overhead. Within minutes, rain hammered the roof. Elizabeth glanced toward the door, worry creasing her brow. It'll pass, Josiah assured her. These mountain storms blow through quick, but it didn't pass. Rain became a deluge. The trail would be a river by now. Impossible to navigate in the dark. They were trapped together, debtor and creditor, with only the fire between them. I'll shut the lean-to, Josiah said, reaching for his coat. Her hand touched his arm, light as a bird. Wait. The storm raged for hours. Elizabeth found herself oddly unafraid, despite being alone with a stranger who could crush her without effort. Something in Josiah McKenna's gentleness at odds with his massive frame told her she was safe. They talked as rain hammered the roof. She learned he'd built this timber business from nothing, working brutal hours, saving every penny. His parents died young, leaving him the raise to younger sisters. Married them off proper, he said with quiet pride. Sarah's in California now, got 3 young ones. Mary's in Chicago. Husband runs a newspaper. You must miss them. Somebody stared into his coffee, but they got better lives than scratching out existence here. That's what matters. And you? Never married. He shrugged shoulders like mountains. Never found a woman who'd have me. Most take one look and run the other way. Elizabeth studied him in the firelight. Yes, he was intimidating all. That raw power barely contained. But his hands, so massive they could snap a tree trunk, handled the tin cups with surprising delicacy. Perhaps you haven't met the right woman, she said softly. Their eyes met across the flames. Something passed between them, electric as the lightning outside. Then Josiah stood abruptly. Storm's dying. I'll check that lean-to now. But when he opened the door, water poured off the roof in sheets. The lean-to's canvas had torn loose, flapping like a broken wing. Well, he closed the door, rain dripping from his hair. Looks like we're both staying here tonight. Elizabeth's heart skipped, but she kept her voice steady. I'll take the chair. You'll take the bed. I've slept on the floor before, Mr. McKenna. Josiah, his green eyes held hers. If we're sharing a roof, might as well use given names. Josiah. The name felt strange on her tongue. I can't take your bed. You can and will. Elizabeth. The way he said her name made something flutter in her chest. My mother would rise from her grave if I let a lady sleep on the floor. She knew arguing was futile. This man had his own code, and it wouldn't bend. Thank you. He gave her privacy to prepare for bed. Stepping outside despite the rain, Elizabeth changed quickly into her spare dress, wishing she'd brought proper night clothes. But who could have foreseen this? When Josiah returned, soaked through, she was beneath the quilts. He banked the fire, laid out bearskins near the hearth, and settled himself fully clothed. Good night, Elizabeth. Good night, Josiah. but sleep wouldn't come. She lay listening to rain and wind, intensely aware of him across the room. His breathing was deep, steady. Did he feel this strange tension too? Near midnight, thunder crashed, directly overhead. Elizabeth gasped, sitting bolt upright. In Virginia, storms had been gentle things. This mountain tempest felt alive, malevolent, just noise. Josiah's voice came from the darkness. Can't hurt you, I know. It's foolish, not foolish. Different from what you're used to. Another crash. This time, she couldn't suppress a whimper, rustling. Then his large form appeared beside the bed. Would it help if I sat here a while, till it passes? She should say no. Propriety demanded it. Instead, yes. He pulled up the chair, a solid presence in the chaos. They didn't talk. Didn't need to. When thunder rolled, his hand found hers completely, engulfing it, warm and calloused and somehow perfect. Elizabeth dozed fitfully, waking to find pale dawn light and Josiah still there, still holding her hand. He'd slept sitting up rather than leave her alone with her fear. The storm's over, she whispered. I know. But he didn't let go. Not yet. In daylight, everything felt different, charged. They prepared breakfast in careful politeness, avoiding each other's eyes. The trail would need hours to dry. Hours more together, with this thing growing between them. About the debt, Josiah said suddenly. I have a proposition. Elizabeth's stomach clenched. Here it came, the demand she couldn't meet, the threat of legal action. Stay. She blinked. I beg your pardon. Stay and work it off. I need someone who can read, write, keep books, handle correspondence with buyers. You're educated, no quality. He gestured around the sparse cabin. Room and board, small wage, debt reduced monthly, fair work for fair pay. You want me to be your secretary, business manager? His green eyes were serious. I'm good with wood, not words. Lost the contracts last month because I couldn't write proper proposals. Elizabeth's mind raced. It was madness. A lady didn't work. Certainly not in the wilderness with an unmarried man. But what waited in Kentucky? Foreclosure, shame, genteel poverty if she was lucky. How long? At the rate I could pay. 2 years, maybe less if business grows. 2 years, here, in this rough cabin, with this giant who held her hand through storms, away from the whispers, the pity, the false friends who'd already started avoiding her. I need to return home first, settle affairs, pack belongings, of course. Take a week, 2, if needed. Job will be waiting. Was she really considering this? Her mother would roll in her grave, but her mother had never faced utter ruin. Yes, Elizabeth heard herself say. Yes, I'll take your proposition. The journey back to Kentucky passed in a blur. Elizabeth's mind churned with what she'd agreed to, a massive step into the unknown. Moses nearly fainted when she explained. You're going to work. For that lumberman, ma'am, it ain't proper, neither is debtor's prison, Moses. She folded another dress, practical wool instead of silk. I've made my decision. She sold everything Charles hadn't already mortgaged. The furniture brought decent prices, her remaining jewelry more. The hardest was her piano, her mother's wedding gift, traveled from Virginia before the war. Take care of it, she told the buyer, blinking back tears. Moses refused to be left behind. Been with your family 40 years, not stopping now. I can't pay you, didn't ask for pay. Where you go, I go. That's final. So they traveled together, the widow and her loyal servant, in a borrowed wagon, loaded with necessities. The journey took 4 days, Moses grumbling the entire way about rough roads and rougher destination. Josiah was splitting logs when they arrived, shirt off despite the October chill. He straightened, surprise flickering across his features at seeing Moses. Brought help, Elizabeth said simply. Moses is family. Something softened in Josiah's eyes. He offered his massive hand to the elderly man. Welcome, Moses. Can always use another pair of hands. Humph. Moses eyed him suspiciously, but shook hands. Where's Miss Elizabeth staying? Cabin's hers. Built a new room for myself. Josiah gestured toward a fresh addition. Moses can have the lean-to. Fixed it up proper. He'd been busy. The cabin sparkled with cleanliness. New shelves lined one wall. A proper desk sat beneath the window. Ledgers already waiting. Curtains, framed. The windows. You did all this. Elizabeth touched a blue fabric, store-bought, but carefully hung. Figured you'd need workspace, and rubbed his neck. Suddenly shy. Wanted it nice for you. Her throat tightened. When had anyone last tried to make something nice for her? They settled into routine quickly. Elizabeth rose at dawn, prepared breakfast, then tackled correspondence and bookkeeping. Josiah's records were a disaster. Scraps of paper, figures scrawled on bark, payments tracked by memory alone. How did you manage? She asked, sorting receipts. Badly. He grinned, transforming his rough features. Why? I need you. She organized everything methodically. Wrote professional letters to suppliers and buyers. Created proper invoices. Within 2 weeks, she'd recovered 3 forgotten debts and negotiated better prices with the sawmill. You're a wonder, Josiah said, watching her work. Just common sense. But his praise warned her. Evenings, they sat by the fire, Elizabeth mending or reading aloud. Josiah carving. He made beautiful things from scraps. Birds, deer, forest scenes, emerging from wood grain. His huge hands moved with artist's precision. Who taught you? She asked, admiring a finished eagle. Nobody. Just see things in the woods sometimes. He handed her the eagle. This one's yours. She cradled it carefully. In Kentucky, Charles had given her diamonds, furs, expensive trinkets, bribes for her silence about his failures. This simple carving, made by firelight, meant more than all of them. Moses watched everything with sharp eyes. That man's sweet on you, he announced one morning. Don't be ridiculous. Elizabeth's cheeks burned. Known you since you were born, child. No, when you're sweet on someone too. Moses. Just saying what I see. Could do worse. Man works hard, treats you respectful. He paused significantly. Looks at you like you hung the moon. Elizabeth busy herself with breakfast, but Moses's words echoed. She'd caught those looks, quick glances, when Josiah thought she wasn't watching. The way he found excuses to linger in the cabin. How his face lit up when she praised his lumber samples. Was she equally transparent? Did he notice how she listened for his return each evening? How she fussed over his meals, wanting to please him? The way her pulse quickened when he stood near. Impossible, she muttered. But was it? November brought first snow. Elizabeth woke to a world transformed, pines heavy with white. Beautiful but treacherous, the trail would be impassable soon. Need supplies, Josiah announced. Town trip before we're snowed in. You should come. The nearest town was a day's ride. They'd have to stay overnight. Proper. No, but nothing about this arrangement was proper. All right, she agreed. They left Moses in charge, wagon loaded with lumber for sale. Elizabeth wore her warmest dress, wrapped in furs. Josiah insisted she take. My coat's enough, she protested. Not for mountain cold. He tucked the fur tighter. Can't have you freezing. The trip was magical. Snow sparkled like diamonds. Josiah told stories of the mountains, pointed out deer tracks, eagle nests. His knowledge ran deep as tree roots. You love it here, Elizabeth observed. It's home, hard living, but honest. No way you stand with a tree, treat it right. It gives good wood, simple. Unlike people, unlike some people. His eyes met hers. Others are exactly what they seem, rare, but worth finding. Her heart stuttered. Was he talking about her? This growing thing between them, impossible to ignore. Now where could it lead? Town appeared to the trees, and Elizabeth pushed aside such thoughts. Time enough to untangle her feelings later. For now, there was business to handle and supplies to buy. But as Josiah helped her from the wagon, his hands lingering at her waist, she wondered if feelings could be pushed aside so easily, or if they'd taken root too deep, like the mountain pines, impossible to uproot without destroying something vital. The town of Cedar Falls wasn't much one main street. Wooden buildings huddled against the cold. But after weeks in the wilderness, it felt like civilization. Elizabeth drew curious stares as she walked beside Josiah, her proper bearing at odds with the rough McKenna, a voice boomed from the saloon. That you big ox. A man emerged smaller than Josiah, but still substantial, with merry eyes and graying temples. He stopped short, seeing Elizabeth. Well, and who's this lovely lady? My business manager, Josiah said firmly. Mrs. Whitmore, meet Tom Bradley, runs the sawmill. Business manager. Tom's eyebrows rose. Is that what we're calling it? That's what it is. Josiah's tone brooked no argument. Tom studied Elizabeth with shrewd eyes, then smiled. About time someone organized you, McKenna. Man can't run on memory forever. They conducted business efficiently. Elizabeth negotiated lumber prices while Josiah loaded supplies. She caught admiring glances from Tom and others, not the leering kind, a genuine respect for her sharp mind. You've got a treasure there, Tom told Josiah quietly. Don't be a fool and let her slip away. She's working off a debt, Josiah replied stiffly. Nothing more. Sure. And I'm the Queen of England. Evening found them at the town's only respectable boarding house. Mrs. Patterson, the proprietress, looked scandalized at their request for rooms. You're not married. I'm Mr. McKenna's employee, Elizabeth said calmly. We require separate rooms, of course. But suspicion lingered in the woman's eyes. They ate in the small dining room, enduring whispers from other patrons. Elizabeth kept her composure, discussing timber contracts as if nothing was amiss. But underneath, anger simmered. These people knew nothing of her situation, her choices. I'm sorry, Josiah said quietly. Should have thought how this would look. I'm not ashamed of honest work. She met the staring eyes defiantly. Let them whisper. After dinner, restlessness drove her outside. Snow fell softly, muffling the world. She walked to the town's edge, needing space to breathe. Footsteps crunched behind her. Shouldn't wander alone. Josiah's voice was gentle. I needed air. She hugged herself against more than cold. Those women in there, judging me. They have no idea what it's like to lose everything. No, they don't. He stood beside her, solid and warm. But I do. She looked up at him. This giant hood built success from nothing. Tell me, parents died when I was 16. Fever took them 3 days apart. Had 2 little sisters. No money, no family. His breath clouded in the cold. Almost lost the girls to an orphanage. Judge said I was too young to raise them. What did you do? Begged. Promised I'd work triple shifts at the mill. Finally convinced him to give me 1 year to prove myself. A sad smile. Longest year of my life. Girls cried themselves to sleep. Most nights, I'd sneak into their room, tell stories about when things would be better. Elizabeth's eyes burned. She could see young Josiah, barely more than a boy, fighting to keep his family together. But you succeeded. Eventually, took years of 18-hour days. Saved every penny, bought my first plot of timberland at 21. Built from there. He gazed at the falling snow. Point is, I know about starting over. About people looking at you like you're less than them. Is that why you helped me? Gave me this chance? He turned to her then, green eyes intense. Partly, also because, he stopped, jaw tightening. Because the moment you rode into my clearing, proud and scared and braver than any woman I'd met, I knew I'd do anything to see you smile. The words tumbled out like they'd been damned too long. That's the truth of it. Elizabeth's heart stopped, then raced. Josiah, I know you're a lady. I'm just a lumberman. You're working for me. Makes it complicated. But I needed you to know. He stepped back. We should return. Getting late. But Elizabeth caught his arm. This man who'd shown her nothing but kindness, who'd given her dignity when the world offered none, he deserved truth in return. That first night, in the storm, she said softly, when you held my hand, I felt safer than I had in years, maybe ever. His eyes widened. Elizabeth, I don't know what that means. I don't know what any of this means, but I'm not a lady anymore. Josiah, I'm just a woman trying to survive. And you? She touched his rough cheek. You make me want more than survival. He covered her hand with his, trembling despite his strength. You deserve more. Deserve everything. I don't want everything. I want what did she want? This complicated, impossible thing growing between them. Snow swirled around them, a private curtain from the world. Josiah leaned down slowly, giving her time to retreat. She didn't. Their lips met gentle questioning, then deeper as her arms circled his neck when they parted, both breathing hard. The world had shifted. What happens now? Elizabeth whispered. Don't know. He pressed his forehead to hers. But we'll figure it out. Together. They walked back through the snow, hands entwined. Tomorrow would bring questions, challenges, the return to their strange, shared life. But tonight, they had this connection, forged from loss and hope, strong as mountain timber. Mrs. Patterson glared when they entered, noting their joined hands. Elizabeth smiled sweetly. Good night, Mrs. Patterson. Lovely evening for a walk. The woman huffed, but Elizabeth didn't care. She'd been judged for marrying Charles, judged for his failures, judged for trying to survive. Let them judge this to this. Chance at something real. At her door. Josiah raised her hand to his lips. Sleep well, Elizabeth. You too. Josiah. Inside her cold little room, Elizabeth pressed fingers to her lips, still feeling his kiss. Through the thin wall, she heard him moving about, preparing for bed. Such a strange path that had led her here. But for the first time since Charles did know, long before that, she felt hope. Outside, snow continued falling, blanketing the world in fresh white. A new beginning, perhaps, for those brave enough to grasp it. Elizabeth smiled and began preparing for bed, her heart lighter than the dancing snowflakes. They returned to the cabin, changed. The kiss hung between them, unspoken but present in every glance, every accidental touch. Moses took one look and snorted knowingly. About time, he muttered, stirring the stew. December arrived with bitter cold. The trail became impassable, isolating them from the world. Elizabeth had never spent winter cut off from society, but found she didn't mind. The cabin was warm, work kept her busy, and Josiah was everywhere, teaching her to identify wood grains, showing her animal tracks in snow, reading by firelight while she worked on correspondence. Their comfortable silence worth more than any party conversation. But he didn't kiss her again, seemed determined to maintain propriety, though she caught him watching with hungry eyes. The restraint was maddening and endearing in equal measure. You're protecting my reputation, she accused one evening. He looked up from his carving. What reputation? Exactly. I have none left to protect. You do to me. His voice was fierce. You're a lady, Elizabeth. Deserve to be treated as one. And if I don't want to be a lady, if I just want to be yours, she almost said. But the words stuck. He set down the carving, crossed to where she sat, knelt before her chair, this giant on his knees, eyes level with hers. Tell me what you want, he said roughly. Plain words. Her hands trembled as she framed his face. I want to stop pretending this is just business. I want to stop sleeping alone, listening through walls. I want deep breaths. I want you to stop being so noble and kiss me again. He surged up, claiming her mouth with none of the previous gentleness. This was fire and need. Months of restraint shattered. Elizabeth met him eagerly, fingers tangling in his hair. Sure, he gasped between kisses. Never more, sure. But footsteps on the porch broke them apart. Moses entered, took in their flushed faces and swollen lips, and sighed dramatically. Least wait till after dinner. Stew's getting cold. They ate, in charged silence, Moses chattering about wood storage and weather signs. Finally, he stood. Think I'll turn in early. These old bones feel the cold. He paused meaningfully. Sleep real sound these days. Real sound. When his door closed, Elizabeth laughed shakily. Subtle. Good man. Josiah hadn't taken his eyes off her. Elizabeth, we need to talk about. No. She stood, moved to him. We've talked enough, thought enough. I've spent years thinking, Josiah, following rules, meeting expectations. Where did it lead? To a man who saw me as decoration, who spent my dowry on schemes and left me with nothing. I'm not him. She straddled his lap, bold as she'd never been. You're nothing like him. You see me, not some ornament. You gave me work when I needed purpose. Her voice broke. You make me feel alive again. His hands spanned her waist, trembling with restraint. If we do this, everything changes. Everything already has. She kissed him softly. I'm not some innocent girl, Josiah. I know what I'm choosing. His control snapped. He stood, lifting her easily, carrying her to his room. The new space was sparse but clean, dominated by a bed he'd obviously built himself, sturdy as everything he made. Beautiful, he murmured, unpinning her hair. It's going gray, she protested. Not the hair. You, all of you. He spread her hair over the pillow. Been dreaming of this. They came together with desperate tenderness, to lonely souls finding harbor. Elizabeth had thought she knew about marital relations. Charles had been perfunctory, selfish. This was revelation. Josiah worshipped her with hands and mouth, patient despite his obvious need. Please, she gasped, overwhelmed, not rushing. Waited too long to rush now. When they finally joined, Elizabeth wept at the rightness of it. This was what she'd missed, not just physical pleasure, but connection, being seen, known, cherished. After they lay entwined, her head on his massive chest. What are we doing? She asked softly. Don't know. Don't care. He kissed her forehead. Just know, I love you. The words hung crystalline in the dark. Love, not Charles's possessive obsession, but something cleaner, stronger. I love you too, she whispered. God help me. I do. No, asking God's help for loving me, he said firmly. Won't have you thinking this is wrong. Not wrong, just complicated. Best things usually are. They dozed, woke to make love again, slower this time. Elizabeth felt reborn, shed of the brittle shell she'd worn so long. This was who she could be, passionate, fearless, whole. Near dawn, reality intruded. I should go back, she murmured. Moses knows exactly where you are. Josiah pulled her closer. Stay, let me wake up with you, just once. How could she refuse? They slept until full daylight, waking to Moses banging pots with unnecessary vigor. Some of us need breakfast, he called pointedly. Elizabeth blushed, but Josiah just laughed. Coming, Moses. They emerged together, Elizabeth wearing yesterday's dress, hair hastily pinned. Moses took one look and shook his head. About time you two figured it out. Now, we talking wedding or just carrying on? Moses, Elizabeth gasped. What? I'm old, not blind. You love each other, plain as day. So what's the plan? Josiah and Elizabeth exchanged glances. They'd crossed the line last night, but what came next? We'll figure it out, Josiah said finally. Together, Moses humphed. Better figure quick. Spring comes, trails open, people talk. He was right. Their isolation protected them now, but eventually the world would intrude. Decisions needed making, but for now, Elizabeth let Josiah pull her onto his lap at breakfast, let herself lean into his strength. Whatever came, they'd face it as they'd begun honestly, bravely, together. The debt that brought her here seemed like providence now. Strange how disaster could lead to salvation, if you were brave enough to grasp it. Elizabeth smiled against Josiah's shoulder. Finally, home. Spring arrived like a reluctant guest, melting snow revealing the world they'd forgotten existed. Elizabeth stood at the window, watching the trail emerge from winter's grip. Soon, wagons could pass. People would come. Questions would be asked. Worried, Josiah wrapped arms around her from behind. Thinking, she leaned into his warmth. Moses is right. We need to decide. 3 months they'd lived as lovers. The secret poorly kept from Moses, but safe from the world. 3 months of waking in Josiah's arms, of working side by side, of building something stronger than passion. Marry me, he said simply. She turned in his arms. Josiah, I know what people will say. Lumberjack and a lady. But I don't care if she silenced him with a kiss. Yes, he blinked. Yes. Did you think I'd say no? She laughed at his stunned expression. I love you, you wonderful fool. Of course I'll marry you. He spun her around, her feet leaving the floor. When? Soon as the preacher can travel up here. Josiah, she sobered. There's something we haven't discussed. The debt. His face darkened. Forget the debt. I can't. It's why I came here. I won't have people saying, that we. She struggled for words. That you seduced me to escape paying. His voice was gentle. Let them talk. No, she pulled free, pacing. I need to pay it. All of it. Not as your wife, but as Elizabeth Whitmore, honoring her obligation. With what money? Everything you had went to other creditors. Then I'll work it off as agreed. Keep working after we marry. Keep proper records. When the debt's paid, then I'll just be your wife, not before. Josiah studied her, this woman whose pride ran deeper than mountain roots. If that's what you need. It is. She returned to his arms. I won't have our marriage tainted by doubt. When I'm free of Charles's debts, all of them, then I'll truly be yours. You're already mine, he growled. And understood. All right, we marry. You keep working. But Elizabeth, I'm doubling your wages. That's not my business. My decision. You've brought in more money these months than I made all last year. Worth proper compensation. She kissed him, this man who understood her need for honor. I love you too. Now, let's go scandalize Moses with wedding talk. But Moses wasn't scandalized. He wept openly when they told him, crushing Elizabeth in a hug. Your mama would be so happy, he said. She always wanted you to marry for love. You think she'd approve of Josiah? Moses looked at the giant who'd given Elizabeth back her smile. He's a good man, works hard, treats you right. What else matters? The preacher came in early April, a circuit rider who'd marry anyone for a small fee and a good meal. Elizabeth wore her mother's wedding dress, altered to fit and yellowed with age but still beautiful. Josiah wore his only suit, looking uncomfortable but handsome. Do you, Elizabeth Ann Whitmore, take this man? She barely heard the words, lost in Josiah's green eyes. This was right, different from her first wedding. No grand church, no society guests, no false promises. Just truth, witnessed by Moses and God and the watching pines. I do you, Josiah Samuel McKenna, I do. He slipped a simple gold band on her finger, carved himself from mountain oak, with everything I am. Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you man and wife. Their kiss was brief, aware of audience, but promised more later. Moses sobbed happily. The preacher stayed for dinner, regaling them with frontier stories. That night, in their marriage bed, Josiah traced her face reverently. My wife, my husband. The words felt strange, wonderful. I have something for you. She retrieved a leather journal from her trunk. Inside, her careful handwriting tracked every hour worked, every debt payment. The remaining balance circled in red. Our contract, she said. I want everything official. He took the journal, studied the figures. At doubled wages, you'll be clear by Christmas. 8 months. She's settling against him. Can you bear having an employee for a wife that long? Can I bear anything, long as you're here? They made love slowly, savoring their new status, husband and wife, yet still debtor and creditor. Complicated, as Josiah had said, but theirs. Over the following weeks, word spread. The new Mrs. McKenna caused quite a stir. Some approved the widow needed protection, and McKenna was prosperous. Others whispered about propriety, sudden marriages, what really went on those winter months. Elizabeth ignored them all, head high, ledgers perfect. Let them wonder. She knew the truth. She was paying her way honestly, loving freely, building something worth having. Tom Bradley visited in May, bringing contracts and gossip. Half the county's talking about you too, he informed them cheerfully. Romantic story widow, and a lumberjack. Other half thinks it's scandalous. Good thing we don't live in town, Josiah said mildly. True enough. By the way, Elizabeth, That proposal you wrote landed me 3 new buyers. You ever think about expanding? Could use someone with your skills at the mill. She's taken, Josiah growled. Tom laughed. Easy, big man. Just saying you married well. Woman with a brain like hers, worth more than gold. After he left, Elizabeth found Josiah brooding by the woodpile. You could work for him, he said without preamble. Better money. Easier work. Town living. Is that what you think I want? Don't know. You were raised to better than this. He gestured at the cabin, the wilderness. Maybe now that we're married, you're thinking. She grabbed his shirt, pulled him down to her level. Listen carefully, Josiah McKenna. I don't want town living. I don't want easier work. I want this life, this cabin, this mountain. Most of all, I want you. Clear. Clear, he said hoarsely. Good. Now split that wood before Moses complains about dinner being late. But doubt lingered in his eyes. Elizabeth saw it, filed it away. Another knot to untangle, another fear to soothe. Marriage was more than love, it was daily choice, constant tending, like the garden she'd started behind the cabin. Worth it though, worth everything, for the way he looked at her each morning, the sanctuary of his arms each night. Worth it for this second chance at happiness. The debt would be paid by Christmas. Then, finally, they could just be Josiah and Elizabeth, and not creditor and debtor, not scandal and gossip, just a people who'd found each other against all odds. 8 more months. She could manage 8 more months. Summer brought prosperity. Elizabeth's business acumen combined with Josiah's quality lumber created a small empire. Orders poured in from St. Louis, even Chicago. They hired 2 men to help with cutting, built a larger storage shed, but success brought problems. In July, a well-dressed man appeared at the cabin while Josiah was at the timber site. Mrs. Whitmore. He tipped his hat, or should I say, Mrs. McKenna. Something in his oily smile made Elizabeth wary. Mrs. McKenna, how can I help you? Thornton Blackwood, attorney. I represent certain interests in St. Louis. He produced papers regarding your late husband's estate. Elizabeth's blood chilled. Charles's estate was settled. Not entirely. Seems Mr. Whitmore had additional creditors. Substantial ones. He showed her a figure that made her gasp. $20,000, plus interest. That's impossible. I went through everything. Private debts, gambling markers. My clients have been patient, but hearing of your improved circumstances, they want payment. I don't have $20,000. No. This thriving business, your new husband's assets. His smile turned predatory. Community property laws are quite clear. Elizabeth's mind raced. If this was real, it would destroy everything. Josiah had worked years building his business. She couldn't let her past ruin him. I need time to verify these claims. 1 week, Mrs. McKenna. Then my clients expect payment in full. He left the papers and departed. Elizabeth sank into a chair, shaking. $20,000, more than Josiah made in 5 years, and if real, legally binding on them both. When Josiah returned, she showed him everything. His face darkened, reading the claims. Blackwood, he spat. Know of him. Shady dealer, represents worse people. This could be fabricated or real. Charles was capable of anything. Elizabeth twisted her hands. Josiah, I can't let this touch you. Your business, everything you built, our business, everything we built. He pulled her close. We're married, Elizabeth. Your debts are mine. No. She pulled away. I won't let Charles destroy you too. There must be another way. Like what? She took a breath. Divorce. The word hung between them like a blade. Josiah went very still. Divorce, he repeated flatly. Just temporarily. Legally separate our assets. Once I deal with this. No, Josiah. Be reasonable. No. He stood, looming. I won't divorce you. Not for a day. Not for pretend. Not for any reason. Then you'll lose everything. Rather lose it all than lose you. His voice cracked. Elizabeth, don't ask this. She went to him, framed his face. I'm trying to protect you. Don't want protection. Want my wife? He kissed her desperately. We'll fight this together. Find a real lawyer. Investigate these claims. But no divorce. Promise me. I promise, she whispered, praying she could keep it. They rode to Cedar Falls the next day, finding the town's only legitimate attorney. Mr. Hartwell, elderly but sharp, examined the papers carefully. Definitely Blackwood's style, he muttered. But these signatures, I'd need to verify them against known examples of your husband's hand. I have letters, Elizabeth said. Back at the cabin. Good. Meanwhile, I'll wire St. Louis, check court records. Blackwood's been known to forge documents before. He peered over his spectacles. 20,000 is substantial. Your husband must have been quite the gambler. Yes, Elizabeth said quietly. He was. They returned home to wait, each day dragging Elizabeth threw herself into work, trying to stay busy. But at night, fear crept in. What if the debts were real? What if she doomed Josiah along with herself? Moses watched them both with worried eyes. What that lawyer want? Trouble, Josiah said shortly. Always is with lawyers. But you two are stronger than trouble. Elizabeth wished she had his faith. By the week's end, nerves stretched thin. She was ready to do anything to protect Josiah, even break her promise. Hartwell arrived just as Blackwood's deadline approached. His face was grim. Bad news, Elizabeth asked. Mixed. The debts are real. Charles did owe money, but not 20,000. More like 5,000, and two legitimate creditors who've been trying to collect properly. Then Blackwood bought the debts cheap, inflated them, added forgeries. Classic scheme. Hartwell smiled thinly. Also illegal. I've wired the authorities. Mr. Blackwood will find himself unwelcome in Missouri soon. So we owe 5,000. Josiah calculated quickly. Can manage that. Take time, but manageable. Actually, Hartwell said, I took the liberty of negotiating. The original creditors will accept 3,000, paid over 2 years. They're legitimate businessmen, not sharks. Elizabeth sagged with relief. 3,000, still substantial, but not ruinous. There's more, Hartwell continued. Investigating Blackwood led to interesting discoveries about Charles Whitmore's dealings. Seems he was involved in several fraudulent schemes. There may be recoverable assets. I don't understand. Your husband had partners who profited from his schemes while he took the losses. Legally, they owe restitution. I can pursue this, if you wish. Elizabeth looked at Josiah, who nodded. Pursue it, she said. After Hartwell left, they sat in stunned silence. The threat that had loomed so large was manageable. More debt to pay, but honestly incurred. You were going to leave me, Josiah said quietly. To protect me, I was going to try. She took his hand. Would have killed me, but I'd have done it. Know that. It's why I'll never let you go. He pulled her onto his lap. We're partners, Elizabeth. In everything. Stop trying to protect me from your past. Our past now. Everything about you is part of me now. Good and bad, easy and hard. That's what marriage means. She kissed him, tasting truth. This man would stand with her through anything. The debt, the gossip, whatever came, they'd face it together. I love you, she whispered. Love, you too. Now come on, Moses is making your favorite stew. Can't face more troubles on an empty stomach. They joined Moses for dinner, the old man fussing over them both. Family, Elizabeth realized. Not the one she'd been born to or married into first, but the one she'd chosen. The one that chose her back. Blackwood's threats had tested them, but they'd held. Like good timber, their love was strong enough to bear the load. The remaining challenges, the original debt to Josiah, the new debts to legitimate creditors, seemed small in comparison. They'd weather this storm as they had the mountain winter together. August brought a letter that changed everything. Elizabeth recognized the handwriting immediately. Her cousin Victoria, from Virginia, whom she hadn't heard from since Charles's funeral. Dearest Elizabeth, it began. I hope this reaches you. Word has come of your remarriage and current circumstances. While Mother disapproves, I remember our childhood closeness and worry for you. The letter went on, revealing that Elizabeth's and her mother's sister had died, leaving a small inheritance, not a fortune, but enough to matter. $6,000, waiting in a Virginia bank. 6,000, Elizabeth breathed. Josiah, that's enough to pay everything. He read over her shoulder. Your debt to me, the new creditors, all of it, with money left over. She sank into a chair. I could be free, free. The word tasted strange. For over a year, debt had defined her life. It brought her to Josiah, gave her purpose, structured their unusual courtship. Without it, who was she? When would you need to go? Josiah asked carefully. Go to Virginia, to claim it. The thought hadn't occurred to her. Return to Virginia, to the world she'd left. I suppose I must. Legal matters require presence. We'll leave next week. Give time to arrange. Josiah, you can't leave now. The Chicago order, the new contracts, then I'll come when I can. You go ahead with Moses, travel alone to Virginia. The idea terrified and thrilled her. What will people say? That Mrs. McKenna is a woman of business. He kissed her forehead. You're not the same person who left there, Elizabeth. Time you showed them. He was right. The woman who'd fled Kentucky's shame bore little resemblance to who she'd become. That Elizabeth was soft, sheltered, dependent. This Elizabeth negotiated contracts, managed accounts, loved fearlessly. All right, she decided. I'll go. Preparations consumed the week. Moses grumbled about traveling so far, or wouldn't hear of staying behind. Josiah arranged everything: reliable coaches, respectable stops, letters of credit. The night before departure, he held her close. Come back to me, always. But something cold touched her spine. Virginia held her past would it reclaim her. The journey took 2 weeks. At each stop, Elizabeth noticed changes in herself. Her hands were rougher now, her skin sun-touched. Despite bonnets, she walked differently, spoke with more authority. When a fellow traveler made improper advances, she shut him down with steel that would have shocked her younger self. You've grown hard, Miss Elizabeth, Moses observed. Strong, she corrected. I've grown strong. Richmond hadn't changed. Same elegant streets, same perfectly maintained gardens. But Elizabeth had. The city felt like a museum of her former life, beautiful but lifeless. Victoria received her with tears and embraces. Oh, my dear, you look so different. I am different. They talked carefully around painful subjects. Victoria's house was exactly as Elizabeth remembered: silk wallpaper, delicate furniture, everything pristine. It felt like a cage. Tell me about your new husband, Victoria said over tea. A lumberman, a good man, the best man. Elizabeth set down her teacup firmly. I won't hear criticism of him, Victoria. Not from you or anyone. I wasn't. Victoria flushed. I just worry. You were raised for better things. I was raised for empty things. Pretty dresses, meaningless parties. A husband who saw me as decoration. The words came harsh but true. Josiah sees me as a person, a partner, that's worth more than all Richmond society. Victoria looked hurt, then thoughtful. You love him. With everything I am. Then I'm glad. She squeezed Elizabeth's hand. Truly, you deserve happiness. After Charles. The bank business took 3 days. The manager clearly disapproved of a woman handling finances. But Elizabeth's knowledge quieted his protests. She arranged transfers, settled documentation with efficiency that left him stammering. Quite capable, Mrs. McKenna, he managed. Yes, she agreed. I am. With business concluded, Victoria insisted on a farewell party. Just family, she promised. They want to see you. Elizabeth agreed, reluctantly. She wore her best dress, simple by Richmond standards, but well made. When she entered Victoria's parlor, conversations stopped. Elizabeth, her Aunt Margaret said, coolly, we heard you'd remarried. I have. Elizabeth lifted her chin, happily. What followed was an interrogation disguised as concern. How did she live? What did her husband do? Wasn't she lonely without proper society? I have never been less lonely, Elizabeth said finally. I wake each morning with purpose. I work beside a man who values my mind as much as my presence. I am building something real. Can any of you say the same? Shocked silence. Then Cousin James laughed. Good for you, Elizabeth. Always said you had more spine than the rest of us. The party ended awkwardly, but Elizabeth didn't care. She'd faced them down, these ghosts of her past. They had no power over her. Now, that night, Moses found her on Victoria's porch, watching fireflies, ready to go home. He asked, "Past ready? Home? Not this mansion or these memories, but a rough cabin where love waited. We leave tomorrow." "Good. This place makes my bones ache," Elizabeth laughed. "Mine too, old friend. Mine too." The return journey felt like flying. Each mile west lifted weight from her shoulders. She carried bank drafts worth $6,000, but more importantly, she carried certainty. The money would buy freedom from debt, but Josiah had already given her something worth more freedom to be herself. When the mountain appeared through coach windows, Elizabeth's heart soared. Almost home. Almost back to the life she'd chosen, the man she loved. The final day's ride seemed endless. Then, through familiar pines, she saw smoke from their chimney. The cabin door flew open. Josiah emerged, running despite dignity. He lifted her from the coach before it fully stopped, spinning her around. "You came back, did you doubt? Every damn day." He set her down, drinking in her face. "Never leave that long again. Never," she agreed, kissing him soundly. Moses cleared his throat. "Some of us would like to get down to." They laughed, helping him descend. Home surrounded them, the scent of pine, the sound of wind, the solid reality of their life together. That night, after showing Josiah the bank drafts, after calculating they could pay every debt with money to spare, Elizabeth made a decision. "I want to keep working," she announced. Josiah looked up from the ledgers. "You don't have to now. The debts aren't why I work anymore." She moved to his lap, their favorite position for serious talks. "I like what we're building. I'm good at it, partners." "You said partners," he agreed. "Understanding, dawning, equal partners. If you'll have me, not for debt or obligation, but because I choose it, then yes." He kissed her deeply. "Always, yes." Later, as they lay entwined, Elizabeth marveled at the journey. From desperate widow to equal partner, from debt to choice. The money from Virginia would clear their obligations, but the real treasure was this love that saw her truly, work that fulfilled her, a life built on truth rather than pretense. Not tomorrow, she'd pay off the last of Charles's debts, close that chapter forever. Then she and Josiah would write their own story, page by page, choice by choice, a story worth telling, a life worth living. A love worth everything. September arrived with golden aspens and crisp mornings. Elizabeth stood in the Cedar Falls bank, watching Mr. Hartwell count the final payment. "That concludes the matter," he said formally. "All debts of the late Charles Whitmore are satisfied." Such simple words for such a monumental moment. Elizabeth signed the papers with a steady hand, though inside she trembled. Free, after more than a year. Finally free. Outside, Josiah waited with the wagon. "How does it feel?" "Strange. Like I've been carrying rocks so long, I don't know how to walk without them." "You'll learn." He helped her up. "Now, ready for my surprise." "What surprise?" "You'll see." Instead of heading home, he turned toward town's end, where new construction showed between trees. Elizabeth gasped, seeing the sign. McKenna and McKenna Lumber Company. "Josiah, what equal partners need equal recognition?" He grinned. "Had the sign made while you were in Virginia. The building's for our new office. Proper one, with real windows and everything." Elizabeth stared at the sturdy structure, tears blurring her vision. Their names, linked in painted wood. Public declaration of what they built together. "Do you like it?" Worry crept into his voice. She answered by kissing him thoroughly, not caring who saw. "I love it. I love you. I love all of it." They inspected the building, 2 rooms, well lit, with space for growth. Elizabeth ran her fingers over the desk Josiah had built, specially for her. "This is too much," she protested weakly. Nothing's too much for my wife. My partner, he pulled her close. Besides, we need the space. That Chicago contract led to 3 more. We'll need to hire clerks soon. Clerks, listen to us, talking like real business people. We are real business people, best in Missouri, way I figure. They spent the afternoon planning where files would go, how to arrange the workspace. Elizabeth's mind raced with possibilities. No more cramped cabin corners. Room to expand, to build something lasting. Tom Bradley stopped by, whistling approval. Looking good, McKenna. Both of you. Heard you cleared those debts, Elizabeth. All of them, she confirmed. Smart woman. Josiah, you let her get away. I'll steal her for my operation. Try it, Josiah growled good-naturedly. See how far you get. They laughed, but Tom's expression grew serious. Actually, I have a proposition. Been thinking about expanding the mill. Need investors. Interested. Elizabeth and Josiah exchanged glances. With the debts paid and business booming, they had capital to invest. We'll discuss it, Elizabeth said. Send over the details. As Tom left, she caught Josiah's proud smile. What's you taking charge, making decisions? Far cry from the scared widow who rode into my clearing. She's still in here somewhere, just stronger now. Good. I loved her too, but I love who you've become even more. They returned home to find Moses had prepared a celebration dinner. Heard the news in town, he said. Figured it deserved something special. The meal was indeed special: roasted venison, fresh bread, even a cake. They ate like family, Moses regaling them with stories of Elizabeth as a child. Always had backbone, he insisted. Just took a while to show it. After dinner, Elizabeth retrieved the carved eagle Josiah had given her that first week. She'd treasured it through everything. This simple gift that marked the beginning of their true connection. Still have it, Josiah noted softly. Always will. It reminds me that beautiful things can come from rough beginnings. They sat by the fire, planning their future. The business would grow, they both felt it. Maybe they'd build a proper house, near the office. Maybe children would come, though that was in God's hands. No regrets, Josiah asked. About leaving your old life. Only that it took so long. She studied their joined hands, is massive and scarred. Hers is smaller, but equally marked by work. That life was killing me slowly. This one makes me feel alive, even when it's hard. Especially then. Hard means we're building something. Growing, she smiled. Besides, you make even the hard days bearable. Moses coughed from his corner. Getting too sweet in here. Old man needs his sleep. They laughed, bidding him good night. But the sweetness lingered as they prepared for bed, a contentment deeper than passion. Thank you, Elizabeth said suddenly. For what? For seeing me, not the lady, not the widow, not the debtor. Me was easy. He gathered her close. You were all I could see from that first day. Proud and scared and braver than anyone I'd known. I wasn't brave. I was desperate. Same thing sometimes. Takes courage to be desperate enough to change. They made love slowly, savoring their new freedom. No debts between them now. No obligations beyond the ones they chose. Just a people who'd found each other, across impossible odds. Later, Elizabeth lay awake thinking. Tomorrow, she'd write Victoria, tell her about the business, the partnership, the life she'd built, not to boast, but to share joy. To show that happiness came in unexpected forms. She'd write Charles's creditors too, confirming final payment. Close those books forever. Then she'd open new ledgers for McKenna and McKenna, chronicling their joint success. The future spread before them, bright with possibility. There would be challenges business always brought them. Maybe losses, certainly struggles. But they'd meet them together. These two unlikely partners who'd turned debt into devotion. Stop thinking so loud, Josiah mumbled, pulling her closer. Sorry, just planning. Plan tomorrow, tonight, just be here. Good advice. Elizabeth settled into his warmth, letting plans fade. Time enough tomorrow for work and dreams. Tonight, she was simply Elizabeth McKinnon, defined by past or future, but perfectly present in this moment of quiet joy. The fire died to embers. Outside wind sang through pines. Inside, two hearts beat in rhythm. Debt paid in full. Love, beyond all accounting. October painted the mountains in flame colors. The new office bustled with activity. 2 clerks hired, orders flowing steadily. Elizabeth had never been happier until the morning sickness started. Just something I ate, she told Josiah, but Moses's knowing look said otherwise. Dr. Winters confounded a week later. Congratulations, Mrs. McKenna. I'd say you're about 2 months along. Elizabeth sat stunned while Josiah whooped, lifting the doctor off his feet in enthusiasm. A baby. He set the startled man down. We're having a baby, so it appears, Dr. Winters said dryly, straightening his coat. Mrs. McKenna, you'll need to take things easier now. I feel fine, Elizabeth protested. Nevertheless, no heavy lifting, regular rest, good nutrition. He eyed her seriously. You're not a young woman for first childbirth. We must be careful. The words sobered Josiah instantly. On the ride home, he kept glancing at her with worried eyes. I'm not fragile, Elizabeth said finally. Doc said I heard him. But women have been having babies while working since time began. I won't be wrapped in cotton. Elizabeth, no. She touched his face. I lost 7 years being decorated. I won't lose more being protected. Trust me to know my limits. He struggled visibly, then nodded. Try to, but if anything feels wrong, I'll rest. Promise, they told Moses that evening. The old man wept openly, hugging them both. A baby, Lord be praised. Your mama would be so happy. Miss Elizabeth, you'll be a grandfather, Elizabeth said, making him cry harder. Word spread quickly. Their employees offered congratulations. Tom Bradley sent a carved cradle. Even the stern banker smiled. But with joy came worry would. Elizabeth continued working. What about travel? Surely she'd rest now. I'm pregnant, not dying, she told the 5th person, to suggest she retire. The business doesn't stop for babies. But privately, fears crept in. 33 was old for first motherhood. Her own mother had died birthing her younger brother. What if? Stop, Josiah said one night, finding her staring at nothing. Whatever you're thinking, stop. You don't know what I'm thinking. You're remembering your mother, wondering if you'll die. His voice was rough. I think about it too. And I remember you're the strongest woman I know. If anyone can do this, it's you. He cradled her still flat belly. Besides, this baby's half McKenna. We're tough stock. She laughed shakily. Promise you won't let them put me to bed for 7 months. Promise. Long as you promise to rest when needed. Deal. They adapted. Elizabeth worked mornings in the office, rested afternoons. Josiah hovered until she threatened to ban him, then limited himself to subtle watching. Moses fussed, constantly, preparing special foods and herbal teas. November brought the first real test. A major contract dispute arose with a St. Louis buyer, requiring immediate attention. Elizabeth insisted on handling it. I can go, Josiah offered. You don't know the details like I do. Besides, I'm barely showing. Travel's still safe. He reluctantly agreed, accompanying her to St. Louis. The meeting was tense. The buyer tried to renege on agreed prices, claiming quality issues. Elizabeth produced meticulous records, samples proving excellence, and testimonials from satisfied customers. Furthermore, she said coolly, any attempt to break this contract will result in legal action. My attorney, Mr. Hartwell, has already been briefed. The buyer capitulated, even agreeing to a larger order. Walking out, Josiah shook his head admiringly. You were magnificent. He never stood a chance. Just business. But she glowed at his praise. The trip exhausted her more than expected. That night in the hotel, she admitted weakness for the first time. I'm tired, Josiah. Really tired. Then we go home tomorrow. No arguments. The Murphy contract can wait. You and the baby come first. She wanted to protest, but couldn't. Her body was changing, demanding attention she'd never had to pay before. They returned to find winter arriving early. Snow fell thick, isolating them again. This time, Elizabeth welcomed it. The forced quiet let her rest without guilt. Her belly grew rounder. The baby kicked, making Josiah laugh with delight each time. They spent evenings by the fire, planning, boy or girl, names, how to expand the cabin for a nursery. Elizabeth for a girl, Josiah said firmly. After her beautiful mother. Absolutely not. One Elizabeth is enough. She considered. Sarah, maybe. For your sister, maybe. And for a boy, not Josiah Jr. Too confusing. Samuel. After my father. Samuel McKenna. She tested it. I like it. Christmas approached with special meaning. Last year, she'd been paying off debts, finding her footing. Now she was established, pregnant, complete in ways she'd never imagined. They decorated simply pine bows, ribbons, candles. Moses cooked a feast. Tom Bradley joined them, bringing news from town and too much wine. To the McKennas, he toasted. Best business partners in Missouri, and soon-to-be parents. May your child inherit your brains, Elizabeth, and your father's size. God help us if it's the reverse. Elizabeth laughed after dinner. She gave Josiah his gift, a watch, engraved with partners always. It's perfect. He kissed her soundly, then produced her gift. Your turn. The box held papers. Elizabeth Reed gasped. Josiah, this is deed to the land adjoining ours. Figured we'd need room to grow. The business, the family, all of it. We can afford, we can. That St. Louis contract you saved, pay for it completely. He smiled. See, partners. I provide the vision. You make it possible. She cried then, hormones and joy overwhelming her. This man who'd given her everything kept finding more to give. Hey now, he soothed. No tears, on Christmas. Happy tears, she managed. I love you so much. Love you too. Both of you. He touched her belly. Best Christmas ever. Later, as snow fell silent outside, Elizabeth reflected on the year. From widow to wife, debtor to partner, childless to expecting. Changes that would have terrified her younger self now felt like natural growth. What are you thinking? Josiah asked, stroking her hair. About change. How things that seem like endings are really beginnings. Like Charles's deaths. Exactly. I thought my life was over. Instead, it was just starting. She turned to face him. You saved me, Josiah. We saved each other, he corrected. I was just existing before you. Working, sleeping, working again. You brought light, and you brought strength. She kissed him. Good trade. The baby kicked, making them both laugh. Already part of their conversations, their plans, their love. Outside, wind howled through pines. Inside, their small family suit, to be larger, rested, secure. Whatever came next, they'd meet it as they'd met everything else. Together, honest, unafraid. The widow's debt had been paid in full. What remained was pure profit, love, joy, and the promise of tomorrow. March arrived with unseasonable warmth and Elizabeth's labor pains. They started at dawn, mild twinges she tried to ignore. By noon, denial was impossible. It's time, she gasped, gripping Josiah's hand. He went white. This giant who could fell trees and face any danger looked terrified. Now, a dark winters, said April. Tell the baby that. Another contraction hit. Get Moses and Sarah Perkins from Townshends, delivered half the county. What followed were the longest hours of Josiah's life. Sarah Perkins arrived, calm and competent, taking charge immediately. Moses boiled water and prayed. Josiah paced until Elizabeth threatened to throw something at him. Sit, Sarah ordered. Hold her hand. That's your job now. So he sat, letting Elizabeth crush his fingers through each wave of pain. Her face, pale and determined, reminded him of that first day, scared but brave, facing the impossible. You're doing fine, he lied when she screamed. Don't patronize me, she panted. This is awful, I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, not your fault. Well, half your fault. Despite everything, she almost smiled. Worth it though. Ours crawled. Elizabeth weakened visibly, and Josiah's terror grew. What if the doctor was right? What if she was too old, too fragile? What if he lost her? Stop thinking that, Elizabeth commanded, reading his face. I'm not going anywhere. Promise. Promise. Too much work to do. Another contraction. Oh God, almost there. Sarah soothed. I can see the head. Red hair. Looks like poor child. Elizabeth gasped. Josiah's hair and my stubbornness. Push now, Sarah commanded. Hard as you can. Elizabeth bore down, screaming. Josiah supported her, whispering encouragement, prayers, loved. Time stopped. The world narrowed to this moment, this struggle, this triumph being born in pain and joy. Then a cry, thin, angry, perfect. It's a boy. Sarah announced, cleaning, the squalling infant. Big one too. No wonder he came early. Ran out of room. She placed a baby on Elizabeth's chest. Josiah stared at the tiny, perfect face, the shock of red hair, the furious expression so like his mother's when challenged. Samuel, Elizabeth whispered. Samuel James McKenna. He's perfect. Josiah touched one tiny fist, marveling when it gripped his finger. Look what we made. I did the hard part. True. He kissed her sweaty forehead. You are amazing. Or amazing. I love you so much. Love you too. All three of us now. Moses crept in, took one look at the baby, and sobbed. Oh, Miss Elizabeth, he's beautiful. Just beautiful. Sarah cleaned up efficiently, pronouncing both mother and child healthy. He's strong, she said. Gonna be big like his papa. You rest now. Real work starts tomorrow. After everyone left, the new family lay together. Samuel nursed eagerly, already showing the McKenna appetite. Elizabeth dozed between feedings while Josiah kept watch, unable to stop staring. You can sleep, she murmured. We're not going anywhere. Can't. Might miss something. Like what? Don't know. Everything. Anything. He studied his son's face. He's got your nose. Poor thing. Beautiful nose. Beautiful wife. Beautiful son. He was babbling, drunk on joy. How did I get so lucky? Not luck. Elizabeth shifted Samuel to the other side. Choice. You chose to trust a desperate widow. I chose to work off a debt. We chose each other. Best choice I ever made. Mine too. They slept, finally, all three together. When Samuel woke hungry at dawn, Josiah changed him clumsily while Elizabeth laughed. Other end goes up, she instructed. I know that. He's just squirmy. Get used to it. Babies are squirmy, messy, exhausting. Perfect. Josiah finished. He's perfect. Word spread quickly. By afternoon, gifts arrived. Blankets, clothes, toys. Tom Bradley brought a rocking horse for when he's older. The clerks pooled money for a silver cup. Even the stern bankers sent congratulations. Everyone loves you, Elizabeth told Samuel. You're already famous. The baby yawned, unimpressed by fame. Recovery took time. Elizabeth chafed at restrictions but admitted she needed rest. Josiah managed a business, bringing ledgers home for her review. They worked around Samuel's schedule, learning the rhythm of new parenthood. He's got your stubbornness, Josiah noted after a particularly long crying spell. And your volume, Elizabeth countered. But mostly, Samuel was easy. He ate well, slept reasonably, and studied the world with gray eyes that would surely turn green like his father's. Elizabeth had never known such complete happiness. One evening in April, as spring painted the mountains, Josiah found her in the rocking chair, Samuel at her breast, both drowsing in the sunset light. What are you thinking? He asked softly. About circles, endings, and beginnings. She smiled at him. A year ago, I paid the last debt. Thought that was the end of the story. But it wasn't. No. It was the beginning of the real story. Our story. She touched Samuel's downy head. His story now too. Josiah knelt beside the chair, embracing them both. What do you think happens next? I don't know. The business will grow. Samuel will grow. Maybe brothers or sisters. If we're blessed, she met his eyes. Whatever comes, we'll face it together. Always, he agreed. Partners. in everything. They sat quietly, watching nightfall over their mountains. Somewhere, a widow was facing ruin. A man was working alone. People were struggling with choices that seemed impossible. Elizabeth said a prayer for them, all that they'd find their way to unexpected happiness. As she had, the debt that brought her here was long paid. With the dividends love purpose, family would pay out forever. Sometimes the worst moments led to the best lives. If you were brave enough to walk through the door they opened. Samuel stirred, making small, hungry sounds. Elizabeth shifted him, Josiah's hands supporting them both. Outside, stars appeared one by one, each a promise of tomorrow. Their story was far from over. In fact, it had barely begun. But this chapter, the widow, the debt, the giant at the door who became everything, this chapter was complete, and it ended as the best stories do, with love.